This is Mark and Charity's Coffee Podcast.
It's Mark and Charity Coffee Podcast. Thursday, March 9th today. There's a time change weekend coming up. The March break next week.
Yes.
Wrap up to Violence Awareness, Random Acts of Kindness.
Boat and RV show.
Boat and RV show's running this weekend.
March Madness next week.
She's off and running.
And you mentioned the clocks that we spring ahead
Clocks,
this week.
yep.
This weekend.
Quinte West Fire Chief John Whalen on the show tomorrow, ostensibly to talk about the fact to change your batteries and all that stuff.
Yeah, but now we've been talking about some other stuff. And I think it's important we talk to him about some of the calls.
Some of the lingo.
Yeah.
Because
Like a
I
big
texted
10-4.
him. I texted him
Yeah.
to make sure he wanted to be on the show, and that was okay.
Like
We
the
weren't
CB.
bothering him.
Yeah, but like the CB commands.
And rather than a
Yeah.
thanks, he sent back 10-4 with an emoji of a firefighter. The big 10-4 from the fire chief. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like what else is there?
And I think that's only fair. We spoke with Monique Belair,
Right.
the fire chief here in Belleville this week. We should speak with John Whalen, too.
Sure, for sure.
Fire chief in Quinte West.
And then he dropped off the gift for my 60th birthday last week on my porch.
Yes.
And I assumed it was for you, and then you said, but what if the second set was for your wife? Well, it's a little late now.
Well, it's going to be awkward, too, because we're going to ask him that tomorrow, too, who it was meant for. And if it's not for me, number one, it's awkward. Why not? And number two,
Awkward
I've
is,
worn the toque.
Why did you assume Charity over your wife?
Well,
At the very home I delivered the gift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't deliver it here.
In front of my wife said, oh, that must be for Charity.
so it could get awkward
I
for
have to go
all
home.
of us. All of us.
Maybe I'll be sick tomorrow.
It's going to be a fun chat. 7:30 tomorrow morning.
Join us for that. Mark and Charity, top jobs that get
No.
divorces. We talked about that this morning. So, yeah, there are 12 jobs.
Yes.
And, we, kind of goofed around on why some of them were. But then we got feedback on a few of the people.
Yes. Back it up, though. You were really hung up on this article. You've been wanting to talk it. Now, I realize part of it was probably just playing around and teasing me about it. But you've been asking
For about a week.
to talk about this for this topic for about a week.
And I know why you didn't, because we did the story last week about the jobs that have the highest stress level.
Yes.
And that you're most likely to die from. Remember, tree cutters is number one.
There seemed to be a theme beginning.
So the next day comes the story of the jobs with the highest divorce and charity. It's like, can we just, can we cleanse the palate?
Let's focus on the positive here, not the negative. But then, yes, as you said, we talked about it. And it was interesting to hear what jobs have the highest divorce rate. And it's interesting in the sense that you don't realize, like the ones that you listed from this study shocked me. I'll be honest. They just shocked me because I wouldn't think that.
We would wonder why. Like, what is it about that job that
that would cause you to...
I mean, a couple of them were
divorce.
self-evident, which is, this is just not the type of job somebody who's going to be in a long-term relationship can help survive.
Yeah, like a
air
flight
travel.
attendant.
Yeah. You're constantly gone for days at a time.
You're traveling everywhere. You know what? You are meeting hundreds of people a day.
Yeah.
I could kind of see maybe,
Right.
that could be.
But I was also thinking, because you're at home a lot, but 3 of the top 12 work in casinos. They were the cage operators. So if you're lucky enough to get to cash in chips at the end of the night.
Which could be a fun job, I would think, too. Because people are happy, right?
Yeah.
They want to cash them in.
Unless you're only cashing in whatever's left.
Oh, yeah.
But that's my point. But why is that job one
how
of the
would
12?
that cause your marriage to end?
And then game operators. So I'm
Yes.
going to guess card deal, like the dealers.
At the tables, yeah.
And the people that go around and help with the machines.
Possibly, yeah.
And then the third one was the managers of those people who are the card dealers and everything. So the 3 levels, from the people doing the chips, the people dealing the cards, and the people looking after the people dealing the cards, all 3 of those are in the 12 top divorce jobs. And I didn't know why. And then somebody who worked at the Gann Casino texted us and said, I'll tell you why.
Yeah, she worked there for 2 years.
She said, crazy hours and shifts make it difficult to plan any kind of family outings, and that takes a toll on relationships. And if you're a woman, I'm going to say for the most part, I'll just assume that, you get hit on.
Yep.
There's a lot of alcohol. There's money floating around. Yeah. You're feeling like the big guy in the casino when you win. Mm-hmm. It's not a conducive environment for a standard type of relationship.
Exactly.
It's not a 9 to 5. And you can't have fun with your spouse. Like I know you do it and I do it. When even during the morning show, my wife texts me, good morning, when I get a spare second during the news, whatever, I text back to her. So when you're at that type of job, you can't. So you're really not in a normal 2023 relationship. And that takes its toll. Whether you catch the eye of somebody else or not, it's just not a great environment.
Well, no, and it wasn't until this listener pointed that out that I didn't even go there.
Occur to me.
Exactly. You think casino, you think fun and excitement. Of course, everything has two sides to it. So I'm sure and anybody who deals with the public knows that there are those interactions that are negative that really can take its toll on you. And then you take that home too. So if some of those things did happen, if you had a disgruntled player, if you had someone who was overly zealous in their attraction or like to you, it can make it incredibly awkward and uncomfortable. And then you have to carry that home too. So you don't think of that, right. I guess. Yep. And it really woke both of us up. So thank you to that listener.
A couple of the jobs, too, were telephone. Like one was a telephone operator. And I don't know. I mean, I can guess that. Again, weird hours. But if it were like a 911 operator, boy, I could see that.
Well, again,
that's
stress.
Beyond stress.
Yeah.
And that puts a stress on a relationship if you have a hard time coping. And why wouldn't you, right?
It's a very stressful
things like
job.
that. Telemarketers was on there, and it's like, yeah, because who'd want to be married to them?
Well, but that's the take you took. They're not nice people. We don't like them.
We don't like them.
Imagine your day where you're that person. I'm sure you're a very good person, but nobody likes you because of what you have to do. So that weighs on you too. And then to take that home is going to cause stress and strain on your relationship. But those two jobs, along with the flight attendant, I did kind of see more of. I could see it happening more with those because to me, I went the other way and said, well, because you're talking to all these people, like the flight attendant, you're meeting new people. If you're even a salesman or an operator, no matter the case, you're talking to people. You're constantly meeting people. Mm-hmm. So there's a higher chance that, and I'm not saying this happens with everybody, that someone may intrigue you, and then you find you're talking to them more and just call. Like, have you seen the movie Red? Bruce Willis and
Helen Mirren, John Malkovich,
and his love interest, Bruce Willis's love interest in it.
Oh, who's
because
the woman?
She's some sort of I can't think of her name.
Is that Mary Louise?
Yes.
Yeah, I know her. I can picture who she is.
Yes.
Parker, Mary Louise Parker.
I believe so.
Yeah,
but she's a pension, I think. Anyway, they converse on the phone and they create that relationship over the phone. They've never met. And he keeps ripping up his check. And she keeps having to, he has to call her then, and then she has to resend it. Like, they keep it going.
They do this thing,
So that's what I was thinking when you said phone operator. I'm like, if you get talking to someone.
You have a nice voice.
You have a nice voice. And there is the loneliness factor, too.
Yeah.
You can create a relationship that way. So I could see how that would
But why they would get divorced, I don't know. Like when you talk about meeting people, okay, how about a massage therapist? So here we are.
Kind of obvious.
Touching a lot of people. Massage therapist.
That might cause some problems, yeah.
Bartender was the last one. That was the one we can, it's just
you
hard.
Involve alcohol, because right or wrong, bartending, I think there is an element of flirtatiousness that has to go along
It's a sexy job.
It's a sexy job, but again, you're trying to make,
to make my money.
To make my money. People come in to have a good time. So part of your job is to help them have a good time, not just by serving them alcohol, but conversing with them, listening to their problems.
Right.
And that connection can be created that way too. I do joke with my husband, who's a bartender. When he goes to work, I'm like, okay, undo the top button.
Yeah.
Get some tips. So, no, I joke, but
So, but
it might go the other way for other couples.
It just means it's hard for a bartender to stay in a committed relationship.
Exactly.
Maybe whoever they're with doesn't, after a while, like the fact that
they may not,
like to talk to
and
them,
the temptation, they might not be able to
handle that.
To handle it.
Anyway, so we talked about the top divorce type jobs today. Radio wasn't in it.
Do you feel better now that we've talked about it?
Teaching,
Thank goodness. Yes.
Cleared that one off my desk. Wasn't the one we've had there the longest, but anyway, we got a few others over
We got
here.
a few others waiting in the wings.
Save that for another day.
Because I will say after yesterday, it kind of felt, because we were so ready for yesterday and it was such a big day.
It was,
that,
though, but it was-
today it was kind of
it's an
like, okay,
important
now
day.
what do we do?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's just the same show
We put
now.
everything into that. And now, so yeah, I'm glad we were able to talk about that. And we talked, speaking of International Women's Day, I didn't see it. You did. The Ford commercial.
Yeah.
They put out yesterday.
I didn't see the commercial right away. I saw the headline, and my first thought was, oh no. It said Ford introduces a car for men on International Women's Day. And I thought, major faux pas. Then you click on it, and the joke's on you. Or in that case, the joke was on me, because it took them a great deal of time, no doubt, to research it and to put it together and to execute the whole joke that would make everybody click that headline to find out that what they're actually doing is pointing out all the features in a car invented by a woman.
They did a mock-up model highlighting female inventors and their contributions to the auto industry.
So good.
For International Women's Day.
So good.
So yeah, it is a type of Explorer men's only edition, and that's what they focused on, the mocked-up vehicle. And then, yes, it proceeds to go through windshield wipers, heaters, rear view mirrors were mentioned.
Rearview
Of
mirror.
course, the GPS.
Yeah, because there's no way a man did, because I know where I'm going and just enjoy the ride.
But what's great about it too is it's not specifically, in some cases, it wasn't that these things were specifically created by a woman, but from the idea that a woman had. It might have started out as something totally different,
Right.
but through their creation, through their invention, it became
Adaptable to a car.
exactly.
Had they not invented that,
Exactly.
we wouldn't have had intermittent windshield wipers.
So quite a few women are mentioned here and acknowledged, including turn signals. They do credit a Canadian woman, Florence Lawrence,
Come on, Flo. Go with Flo.
one of the earliest silent movie stars. She bought a car in 1914, developed a mechanical arm operated by a button inside the car that flipped left or right to indicate a turn.
There it is, right?
And that was in 1914. She also made an arm that flipped up a stop sign when she pushed the brake pedal.
Right?
But she never filed a patent for her inventions.
Oh, my gosh.
But she created that for her own vehicle back in 1914. And from that, someone saw it and thought, hey,
So good.
we should have turn signals to indicate that the car is going to move in a certain direction.
So they actually had a stop sign that would flip up on
She
the back
had
of
an
a
arm.
vehicle,
Yep.
right, before brake lights. So rather than lights, it was an actual sign. And then
Yeah.
from that, somebody...
because, there wouldn't be brake lights.
Yeah,
You'd
there
hit the
wouldn't have
brake
been.
and nobody would know that you were slowing down or coming to a stop.
And what were the odds in 1914 of a second car being behind you? There were
Well,
only 10
there's
cars
that.
in a
Or
row,
that
but
you
that's
were
not the point.
following that close. Or, yeah.
The point is that the Lawrence generationally have been ripped off of billions of dollars from this invention. Had she patented that?
I wonder if
Everybody
her
who has a
family
vehicle.
has done anything
Oh
to-
my gosh. Because the story's out there, but legally,
Yeah.
apparently Alexander Graham Bell is not the person who invented the telephone. He was the one to get the patent in first.
Yep.
The other guy who invented it just as much was a dollar short and a day late, and we don't know what his name is. I can look it up, but they were both rival inventors, and apparently Alexander Graham Bell was second, but the first to the patent office. That's the story, everybody. So yes, be a great inventor, but yes, get your name on it.
Well,
That's
yeah.
the other one.
I'm sure, though, at the time, it never occurred to her to do that,
Sure,
though.
yeah.
It was just something for her own safety, something she thought about and never thought that it would be. And I'm sure at the time, too, and this is again why we have International Women's Day, for a woman to even suggest, hey, maybe we should have this on the vehicle.
In 1914.
In 1914, I'm sure the men's reaction was, including her husband's, was, whatever. Who wouldn't know I was going that way?
In
Of course they're gonna know I'm gonna
1914,
turn
I bet
that way.
the answer was, no, you can't drive the car.
I would say depending on where you are, because I think in rural areas, women did.
Yeah, you take the car. I'm not going out. Yeah. Trust true.
Well, they were a little more active, right? A lot of
Yeah.
farming, and they were part of it.
110 years
But
ago.
you're right, too, yes. How
Yeah.
many female drivers were there to begin with?
Back then.
Yep.
And she was already thinking, how can we make this safer?
Yeah, this
How can
isn't
we make
safe.
this a
Somebody
better
does. You
experience?
guys
Yeah.
don't know what I'm doing or where I'm going.
Yeah. Don't you pay attention where everybody else is going? It's like, no. I'm waiting for GPS. But it's funny we talk about patent because I invented Uber. Did I ever tell you that?
You didn't invent.
I invented Uber many, many years ago.
Okay.
Doing mornings, and I had my afternoons, and I thought, I love to drive.
Yes.
And there must be people that just need a ride somewhere where transit doesn't take them. I should just go and put like signs up on poles that say, if you just need a ride to a doctor's office, if you're a senior, I'll drive you round trip for $10 in Belleville. I'll just pick you up, take you to, and then, and I'd said that to my wife, and I said, that'll pay for the gas, it gives me something to do. And she had said, I bet you our insurance wouldn't cover that. That if something happens, so now you're using it as a vehicle other than, so we got talking about the feasibility of actually doing something, of being a ride share service on my own. And then I find out about Uber, and it's like, well, I came up with that 20 years ago.
Kind of like a taxi, too.
Also kind of like a taxi, but I don't have it's just going to be whatever.
No, you'd be independent.
You call me. Yeah,
you would
call
be yourself.
me.
Yes.
And, I'd have treats.
And what? I don't think Uber has treats.
Not
Does Uber
anymore.
have treats?
Early on, they used to.
You did really?
When they were worried about five
Do you
out
know
of 5.
I've only used Uber once?
My daughter, she lives in Toronto.
Absolutely.
That's the way.
That's the point,
way.
right?
Yeah.
If I was in a larger center, I probably would use
Yeah.
it. When we were in Boston, that's when we used it.
I also invented the adult contemporary radio format back when I was in college. I said one day there's going to be where it's just going to be these types of songs, and there was. I invented that. I've got all kinds of inventions that I take credit for that I never took to the patent office.
You were so far ahead of your time.
I really was. I'm a visionary. And that's what happens when I tell people that. What do you do for a living? I'm a visionary.
Is that on your card?
It's on my card with Emperor. What's your job description? Emperor. And
Here, hold my crown.
Visionary. And
okay.
And to any
Yes.
of the literary agents that I've sent out my query letters and I've mentioned this podcast that I
Yes.
do, author. And they're like, no, you're not till you're
not
published,
yet.
you clown. Stop.
Oh my goodness, Mark! It's a wonder you have time for anything.
Yeah, well, I get up. I do this in the morning before my day gets going.
Okay,
And then
so
I
this
just go and
is
I do
your
the rest-
wake-up period,
I do
is
the
it?
rest of the day for how many days I
Mark,
have left.
when did you come up with the car sharing program?
It wasn't long after I moved here because I had heard.
So 25 years ago.
Yeah, because I had heard it was difficult. If you lived in Quinte West and had to get to Picton, it was impossible. Or if you had to get to Napanee and you didn't have a car, it was impossible. How would you have gotten there? If you lived in Quinte West and wanted to get to Picton and you didn't have a car, you didn't go. It wasn't there. And I thought, that's crazy. For $20, I'll drive you. How many people can I get? What if I picked up 3 people at a time? I'd make $60. I'd spend $10 on gas. I'm home anyway. My wife works. I get
So
to meet
now-
people. I'm on the radio. I could meet people. I could do trivia with them. It would be
So
fun.
by you not putting a patent in, you have now taken all that money away from your family,
I have. And
just like Flo did.
And we have this abject poverty that we live in. And I'm sure my children will sue me when they hear this podcast.
They will.
Thanks, Dad.
I'm sure you'll get a phone call.
Yeah. But
What were you thinking?
I was thinking it wasn't feasible.
Feasible.
And I think my wife talked me out of it because she worried about.
Don't blame her.
She worried about the.
At that time, I would think your insurance would have been fine.
Yeah, maybe because nobody knew what that was.
I would say now
Yeah.
you would have to, but if you just
Because what has to happen?
But you were just giving someone a ride.
You worked for Allen's Insurance. So what happens if I say I'm going to sign up to be an Uber driver? Don't you have to make
Yes,
that
now you
designation?
do, yeah.
You have to let them know if you're
Because it's
gonna-
a business, yeah.
Right, because now it's ride
You're
sharing.
using it for work.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
And
so it is something different.
You're driving more often.
Yes.
You're driving with other people
Yes.
who could sue you if something happened.
Yep.
It's not just your family or your friends.
So you want insurance to have them covered
yeah.
too, not only
So-
your vehicle and yourself.
So, I mean, my wife was
it
very,
would
very
change.
smart.
I just don't know if that was in place 25 years ago.
Yeah.
I would think, because again, the way the world is at that time, it would just be considered, well, he's giving me a ride. I'm giving him gas money. Or it wouldn't
Yes.
necessarily
Yeah.
be,
Yeah.
I am paying you as an employee to drive me. It would be like, he's giving me a ride.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
He's going to take me. I'm going to meet some people.
Give him gas money and away he
We're
goes.
going to have some trivia. We're going to play some soft rock hits of the
Exactly.
80s.
every Wednesday.
Yep. And I'm going to meet people and talk about them on the air. This was going to be my side hustle before I knew that side hustle even existed.
Or that it could be.
That it could be. Because
what
back
it is
then
now.
there wasn't apps. There wasn't.
Hence, and that's exactly what I mean. She probably thought the same thing. This is just something I'm doing.
On my vehicle.
On my vehicle. It's not
Yeah.
gonna turn into anything.
Yeah. Me and Flo,
Yeah.
visionaries. Me and Florence Lawrence, visionaries
Lawrence.
of the Turning Indicator.
I love that name.
113
What
years
did I say
ago.
when we read that? I took another one of your isms and just said, you can't make up names.
You can't just start
Can't.
making up
Why?
names. You can't do that. If your name is Mary and you marry somebody named Christmas, you got to call yourself Marion or May.
Margaret.
It
Something.
can't be. You can't, like Florence Lawrence. You should have sounded that out in your head before the
But
nuptials.
it's fun to say. Florence Lawrence.
Florence Lawrence. That's how we
Fun to
remember
say.
her.
Exactly.
What else going on? What's going on?
Oh,
Let me see.
there's so much going on this
Yeah,
weekend into
there
next
is.
week. Today, I believe it kind of feels like the quiet. Honestly, kind of feel like we've been going kind of up here.
There have been a lot going on.
Yeah, and
Yep.
there's been a lot going on lately, and it's kind of just a lull. And then tomorrow we kick it back up because it continues. March break for some kids starts tomorrow. Today's their last day, and then they're off next week. For Hastings Prince Edward, they go tomorrow and then kick off their March break. It's going to be a gong show next week for everybody.
Yeah.
Which is going to be great. Love it.
Tuesday's podcast is going
Yeah.
to be about March Madness. Okay?
Oh.
I know it becomes available on Monday, but it just struck me what Monday's
We're gonna
podcast
do it
has
Tuesday?
to be about.
What's
we'll do that on
Mondays
Tuesday.
have to be about?
Monday is March 13th, and that is the third anniversary of the beginning of the pandemic. It was March 13th that everybody got shut down.
Can I back up just for a moment?
Sure.
Do you know we've missed our anniversary?
Yeah, you and I.
Yeah, that was last weekend.
Last weekend? Oh, well, yeah,
It's the
no,
4th.
no, that's that fake anniversary you
No,
like
that's
to do.
when you and I,
Here we go.
that I like
This
to
is
do.
the fake
and we'll get back to COVID. And I agree with you. But just to back the train up here a bit.
Okay, all right.
You go on about every other date
Yeah.
of the year.
Yeah.
Our anniversary to
February
me
11th.
is the first official day of Mark and Charity Mornings. And the first official day of Mark and Charity Mornings was March 4th. It was the day after your birthday because I
Okay.
came back from Florida on the 3rd.
Okay. No, it's February 11th. That was
It wasn't February 11th. That was the first day without Ingrid.
Right.
But it wasn't Mark and Charity Mornings then. You and I were just playing around and getting organized.
So you claimed that February 11th to March 4th was spring training.
Yes, because I went away.
So that was like this big, like the pilot episode
Yes.
of the show.
It was a soft launch. it was the tester weeks to see if it was actually going to work.
So when is it? Okay, so for 4 years it's still in test, or it's worked.
Well, I'm still hoping it might,
Okay.
but
I didn't know that you considered that. How have you waited
Yeah.
4 years to throw that pie in my
I
face?
haven't. You usually remind me, and you didn't.
I never do.
You do. You always remember dates.
I know, but I
was
never
the
say March 4th.
That was the first Mark and Charity Morning show.
This is off the
I'm
rails.
just looking at the calendar because when you sit there, I'm like, wait a minute, we missed. So okay, I got that out. Back to March 13th.
Yeah, but that
2
was
years.
No,
3
3
years.
years.
Holy
3
cow.
years ago,
Okay.
that's when it all started. When
Write that date down, by the way.
yeah,
Okay.
on the Thursday. Was it the Thursday? Was it Thursday then?
Yeah,
or
because I
was it
went home
Friday?
for Friday.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so on Friday, the 13th,
Was my first official day at home.
yeah, and it'll just be for a couple of weeks. Everybody, the March break will be 2 weeks
Take
longer,
the
and then we'll be
equipment,
fine.
but it'll
Yeah.
just be a couple of weeks.
Just going
We'll
to
see
be a
what
couple
happens.
of weeks. Steph came home. She's going to spend the 2
Couple
weeks at
weeks.
home. And here we are 3 years later.
Yeah, but we're back
out
to
of it, right?
Now that only did last 4 months? Long enough. Mm-hmm. April, May, June. I came back in July. No, was it
Yeah.
July or August? Was
Boy,
it the
that's
end
a
of
great
summer?
question. Well, you had to come in when I went on vacation.
That was July,
but I don't
but
think
then
you
I
and I
went back
together in the
home.
same room. Yeah, that might have been just before. That was.
I
in
think
the
it was
fall.
late. Yeah,
I think
it was
in the
after
fall.
Labor Day.
Yeah, in the fall, because something tells me it was 7 months long, so it might have been October even.
No, it was before
Was it?
that. Yeah,
Okay.
I want to say the end of summer.
Okay.
The end
Because
of
I've
August.
already
I came
started
back.
compiling information on before and after. Things we used to do before, we would never even give a thought to, and the way the world is now after.
Do you know if we're getting
pandemic.
back to it though?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I've seen it a lot more lately.
Yep. Yep.
Like it's wonderful.
Yeah, one of the ones for
wonderful.
me is right as the pandemic started, there was the Boat and RV show.
Yes.
And so some people didn't go because of that, but it was sort of like, we don't know what to do. It's already organized. You can go, you can wear a mask, you can do sort of whatever. And then after that, it was like, no.
Nothing.
There were no public gatherings after that.
So it still went on that weekend?
Yeah.
But that was kind of the last weekend anything was held.
Yeah. And so to get it back now is sort of like full circle.
Yep. And 3 years
they haven't
later.
had one. It took 3 years before we have another one.
Well, your
But here we
doctor
are.
friend said 2.
Yeah, I went to give blood, and I remember it was probably May. And so at this point, it had been
Of
a couple of
2020.
months, 2020. And I'm like, how long is this going to go on? And he said to me, 2 years. And I said, no. He shook his head. He said, yep, you watch 2 years. And it basically, for the most part, was after the vaccines and everything. I mean, it's not been eradicated by any means, but it's far more under control.
Well, and as I said, a lot of things are getting back full circle with the Boat and RV show, but just gatherings themselves, going out places, restaurants, hockey games, any sort of larger gathering, people are really, they're not holding back.
Yeah.
And it's nice.
Yeah, 3 years. So we'll talk about that on Monday on some of the before and afters. And then
Sounds
March
good.
Madness on Tuesday.
So we'll do March Madness Tuesday. Got it.
Because we've got a really unique throwback Thursday idea around March Madness coming up
Yeah, I got to pick mine.
next week.
I'll try to let you win next week because it's March Madness.
I'm not sure I will with the song I've got again.
Whatever.
No, I told you. I told you.
Well, don't pick a crappy one.
I can't help
You have your artists,
I love
and I don't know
crappy
how
ones.
you can pick a crappy one by them, but pick a good one.
It's very challenging.
It's not challenging at all.
Big show tomorrow. John
Stop.
Whalen, Quinte West Fire Chief on the show because it is time change weekend.
We
They always
spring
advise
ahead.
you to do your batteries. There's some lackey down the chain who could come on the show and do that, but we love talking to John Whalen.
We do.
And so we'll get the fire chief on.
And we'll make it awkward.
And as we
it'll
say,
be good.
we'll put him on the hot seat. Be on the show tomorrow. And we'll have our Friday March break kickoff song, which is really
Which
lame,
Mark
but I
picked.
love it.
Mark
Yep.
chose it. It's all Mark this week.
It's the end of Random Acts of, or Violence Awareness Random Acts of Kindness Week. And so a kind song tomorrow warms my 60-year-old heart. So we'll have that going on tomorrow.
Because
have a
it
great
can't
day.
win throwback.
And I'm going to play pickleball tonight. Last
you?
thing, I'm going to play pickleball
Oh,
tonight.
nice.
7
This
till
is the
9.
first time since your tournament.
Yeah, since we won.
Okay, don't pull
provincial
anything.
championships.
Don't hurt anybody.
Okay, right. Don't make fun of anybody.
Oh, I don't
Try
care
to
if you
be
make
nice.
fun of anybody, but
Make
don't
some friends,
hit
Mark.
anybody with a ball.
Okay.
Don't trip and fall. Don't scuff
Right.
up your shoes.
Okay. The guys from the team, they get together.
Who are you playing with?
I think I'm playing with Ken Schmidt and Mark
so
Phillips.
it's your team?
Yeah, like the same guys that made the team. It's like, we should keep doing this. And so they've got courts Thursday night from 7 till 9. So when I handed the trophy off to Mark Phillips, it's like, we told you about that. And I said, no, I know. Do you guys still go? Because it was almost 2 months ago. And they're like,
They were
every
serious about
Thursday
it.
night.
Come
So I
on,
said,
Philman, let's go.
I'll see you Thursday. Come on,
Smarty
Captain.
pants.
All right, I'll see you Thursday.
All talk, no action. Come
So,
on.
Going out tonight. We're going to play the pickleball.
I can't wait.
All of that coming up tomorrow morning with Mark and Charity Mornings. It's Mark and Charity Coffee Podcast. Have a great Thursday, March 9th today. If you are taking off for your March break, travel well, all right? And we'll talk to you when you get back.